Good morning. Welcome to an unprecedented event where we had a line out the door. So thank you for your patience and for joining us this morning. My name is Dan Predale. I'm the Assistant Dean of Extended Learning at Saddleback College, as well as the Director of the Emeritus Institute. In August, I passed 5 years here at the college, and this is our 6th year doing the lecture series. It's so wonderful to see some familiar faces over the past few years greeting as we came in, and welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time here at the lecture series. Could I have a show of hands? Who's here for your first time with the lecture series? Fantastic. I'm so glad. Thank you so much. We're really thrilled. The Saddleback College Emeritus Institute, the mission of it is to promote lifelong learning by providing academically rigorous, mentally stimulating, socially engaging, and health-improving courses for older adults throughout South Orange County. And we're thrilled to continue to grow and serve about 6,000 older adults from Lake Forest all the way down to San Clemente. So thank you so much for being part of the program and for engaging the community in lifelong learning. We will have an excellent speaker lineup this semester. We have 16 wonderful lecturers who will be engaging us on multiple different topics: environmental issues, political issues, artistic, photography, amongst others. And I believe that this will be a wonderful event. We have tried with Laura Hoffman serving as the moderator, has given us a fantastic work so far, and she has put together a cohesive series. As we move forward, I would encourage you, after today's lecture and after each lecture, please do stay for the question and answer time out of respect for our lecturer and for the other members of the audience. It is a rich opportunity to hear from your peers, and I ask that you would kindly remain here for the question and answer time as well. Please do silence your cell phones. That is something we will ask each time, and I appreciate you doing that right now. I would also like to welcome a special guest that we have today. Marcia Milchiker is a Board of Trustee member for the South Orange County Community College District, who has been an avid supporter of the Emeritus program, fighting to maintain our opportunity to serve older adults throughout South Orange County, and has been a staunch advocate for lifelong learning and is a lifelong learner herself. So without further ado, I'd also like to have you welcome Marcia Milchiker. Thank you, Marcia, for all you do for us. Laura Hoffman is excited to be the faculty moderator for this semester's lecture. She is unable to be here for the first 2 weeks, and so we are bringing back a beloved faculty moderator, Dr. Greg Jenks, who will be serving as our moderator for the first 2 weeks. Prior to welcoming our speaker up to the stage, I believe he also has a special person he would like to introduce as well. Is that correct? Okay, so without further ado, we will bring it over to Greg Jenks.
Thank you. So this is your official welcome. We're so happy to see each one of you here. If you've never been to the Dorothy Marie Lowry Distinguished Guest Lectureship Series, you're in for a real treat this semester. Look at the lineup. It's a fantastic lineup of great speakers. You're going to be edified. You're going to be built up. You're going to be educated. And you're going to be inspired by our speakers. And we're so glad you're here. Come back next week. Come early next week. I don't put this on you. I put it on us. We were not unprepared for the great quantity of people. But if you do come a little bit early, you get a good seat. And you get to talk with people. And we'll get started on time. So anyway, thank you so much for your patience. We're so glad to have each one of you here, and we just hope you come back with open minds and open hearts to what's going on here. It's just a great program, so I'm really happy to see each one of you here. I'm happy for a lot of reasons, but for those who haven't been here, don't know me yet, I was the moderator last 2 years of this class, and I dropped it all because I met a woman. I met a woman, and I met an Italian woman. Her name is Angela, and she happens to be here today. Angela, can you stand up? I can't see you back there. There she is. I met Angela a year ago in Italy. Actually, I met her 32 years ago in Italy at language school when I was studying Italian. And I was dating someone else who dropped me for someone else. And I just lost touch of Angela. But we came into touch again in August of last year. And we fell in love. And we got married in September. So I've been in Italy for the last 3 or 4 months. It's been awesome. Thank you. We're back in Laguna Niguel now, and I'm teaching philosophy here in the Emeritus Institute. Love to see you there, as well as Bible as literature. That's a course I often teach in the program. So there you have it. All right, we have a great speaker, and we're taking a lot of his time already. I'm sorry for that, Keith, but I'm going to introduce Mr. Keith Sharon to you. Keith is an amazing person. I just talked to him in the break. He is just a great guy. Let me just read the blurb we have here on him so you can get a feel for who the guy is. He's much more than this, though. Keith Sharon started at the OC Register in 1985. 1985. He's covered sports, education, cities, investigations, and general assignment stories. He's one of the reporters on the 2005 Pulitzer finalist series, Toxic Treats. The Register has sent him to the Middle East for a series on life on aircraft carriers in the Persian Gulf, China for the opening of Shanghai Disneyland, New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, and San Francisco for the World Series when the Angels beat the Giants. Oh, hey now. Okay. He has written 2 screenplays. Not just that, but he's actually had them made into films. Anyway. He's written 2 screenplays that have been made into films, Showtime with Robert De Niro and Eddie Murphy, and Finding Steve McQueen with Forrest Whitaker and Travis Fimmel. He lives in Trabuco Canyon with his wife Nancy and 3 children, Dylan, Allison, and Trey. Let's give a real warm welcome for Mr. Keith Sharon. Sorry for the delay. Thank you very much.
No problem. Is my mic on?
It will be.
Let's check. There it is. Yes. Thank you so much. Overflow crowd. Who would have thought? Are we all good? We are all good. Let me move this. Happy New Year. At what point on the calendar is it no longer proper? No, let me rephrase that. At what point is it kind of annoying and offensive to say Happy New Year? It's January 17th. If it's March 3rd and some guy comes up to you and says, Happy New Year, you have to be thinking, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Idiot. Needs some help, right? Here's my question. What are we so happy about that we would go around announcing our happiness to everyone and expecting them to join in back to us? I'm kind of sad to see 2019 go. I said it. I had a screenplay made into a movie in 2019. I became a podcast host for the first time. 2 seasons of my podcast called Crime Beat in 2019. So when I came out here and said, Happy New Year, I take that back. So you know when you go to the movies, and even here today, Dan told you to put away your cell phones? This is the opposite of that. I would like everyone to take out their cell phone, because on your home page of your cell phone, there's a little purple icon that says podcasts. And if you click on that and search for Crime Beat, the one with the police lights, because there is another freaking Crime Beat, who figures that somebody else, the Canadian broadcasting whoever, called their podcast Crime Beat 2. Ours was first. But if you click on it, it's free. I think that's a favorite word among this crowd. You can hear the entire season and all of the stuff and the jokes I tell today, you'll understand once you hear Crime Beat. And I check. I get a download report every day, and so I'll know if you did or didn't. So please subscribe. In 2002, end of 2002, there was a show on television about the biggest bank heists in the history of the world. And they focused on a case in England. I believe it was the Knightsbridge heist in England in the 70s. And at the end of that show, they mentioned in passing that the biggest bank heist in the history of the United States was in Laguna Niguel, California in 1972. Did anybody know that? Biggest bank heist in the history of the United States. So I went to work the next morning, and an editor named Frank Mickadite, a columnist, you might have heard of him. Frank wrote a column for the Register for a long time. He sees me, and he knew that I was a screenwriter and had written a few screenplays and had one made. He said, "You want your next screenplay? You've got to find out about this bank heist from 1972. So I went to the morgue. That's what we call the library at the Register. We don't have one anymore, but back in the day we did. And I pulled the clips from 1972 and found that 7 guys from Youngstown, Ohio, had come to Laguna Niguel and been largely unsuccessful, although they were genius bank thieves. Difference between a robbery and a burglary. Everyone knows that, right? Robbery, any idiot can rob a bank, walk in with a gun, give me all your money. Burglary is when you break in the middle of the night and no one gets hurt. I like burglaries. Robbery is just too messy. So I read the stories from 1972, and this is 2002, this is 30 years later, and I'm reading the stories, and I see a name. And the name was Harry Barber. Who names their kid Harry Barber? Think about that. You may get it on the way home. So I thought, unusual name, I can find this guy, and I can find out about the biggest bank heist in the history of the United States. So I did a search, and I used all the tricks that we have available to us, and I saw that Harry Barber had an address in Redondo Beach, California. So I did what reporters do. Jean Pasco is here, who used to work at the Register and the Times, and invited me to come, and so she knows exactly what I'm talking about. I drove unannounced to this house in Redondo Beach, and I knocked on the door. It was a very nice house, and it had a very nice porch, I remember. And a woman came to the door, and I said, "I'm from the Orange County Register, and I'm doing a story about the biggest bank heist in the history of the United States. Do you know Harry Barber?" And she said, you know what? He was my handyman. He built the porch that you're standing on right now, but he never lived here. He must have used her address for some form he was filling out, or some, I don't know. But she said, he left a forwarding address in Montclair. So if you know Redondo Beach, Montclair, I had a long other drive that I had to do. So I drove to Montclair. And he lives in Unit 20. I'll never forget it, trailer. And I thought, biggest bank heist in the history of the United States, trailer. And I knocked on the door, and the only sound I heard was a yappy dog. What kind of criminal mastermind has a yappy little dog? And he didn't come to the door. But I did the reporter trick that we all do. I took out my notebook and I wrote a note. Dear Harry, it's been 30 years since the heist. I'm sure the statute of limitations is up and you can talk freely about this, and I would love to talk with you. Let's have dinner, Keith. And I wrote my phone number. And I slipped it into his screen door. That's the only shot we got, right? And a week went by. And 2 weeks went by. And after 3 weeks, he called me. He thought I was with the FBI. He was pissed off that why would an FBI guy be coming to his door? No, I'm a journalist, different, What do you want to know? And I said, well, I write Sunday magazine-style feature stories, human interest for the Orange County Register, and I would really like to write about what really happened behind the scenes, the biggest bank heist in U.S. history. Okay, he says. He's very gruff. Okay, what the hell? All right. Where do you want to do this? And I go, you pick. You pick the place. I'll take you to dinner anywhere you want, because I really want to hear this story. And he goes, Denny's. And I said, I can work with this guy. Pathfinder Road, 57 freeway. It's not there anymore. I've gone back because that spot is so momentous to me. But he met me. I knew he was reluctant to talk because criminals don't really like to broadcast. Literally, he was telling the person he shouldn't be telling about the crime. So I thought, how am I going to get him to talk? I'm going to make a plea to his vanity. I'm going to tell him, which I believed, and if you do the research, if you look it up, you will find this bank heist crew that he was in, they were really good at what they did. They took liquid styrofoam that's used to fix surfboards and sprayed it in the exterior alarm so that when the clapper tried to ring, it would only hit the styrofoam and it would deaden the sound. And then they didn't go through the reinforced rebar walls of the vault. They went in through the plywood roof, landed on the roof of the vault, drilled 16 holes in the concrete ceiling, 16 sticks of dynamite, and exploded the roof of the vault, so it exploded in, surrounded by sandbags, and they were able to get in and out of the bank. They burglarized the same bank 3 nights in a row. Let me just say, nice security system, United California Bank of Laguna Niguel. But it was a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday, and by Monday morning, all of the safe deposit boxes, 500 whatever there were, had been opened, and they had, the first reports were very low. It ended up to be $8, $10, $12 million, all unaccounted for. There's no record when you put money in a safe deposit. It's money usually that's being hidden from somebody else, but they also got old baseball cards, teeth, baby's first hair, divorce decrees, stocks and bonds, all kinds of anything that people would want to store for memorabilia. They got bags and bags of stuff. So anyway, as I'm doing now, I was sitting at Denny's across the table from Harry Barber, yammering on about how great this crew was and how they broke into this bank. And he looks at me and he says, "You don't know what the F you're talking about, do you?" And I said, "Oh, what do you mean?" He said, "We were after Nixon." And he slammed his fist on the table. And I said, "Nixon? Like President Nixon?" And he said, "Yes. Have you ever heard of the Milk Fund?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, you didn't do your homework, did you? I thought journalists did their homework. Harry's that kind of guy." And I said, "Well, I'll learn about the Milk Fund." He said, "Yeah, when Nixon was trying to get reelected in 1972, he would have the lobbyists from the Milk Producers of America into the White House, and he would say, 'You know what? I heard that you guys want to donate $1 million to my reelection campaign. And you know what I know about $1 million? Where there's $1 million, there's $2 million. So he would take the official donation and declare it, and he would take the above the rest of the donation, and he would put it in a little bank in Southern California. And these guys in Youngstown, Ohio, got word that Nixon was hiding extorted campaign money in this bank. So in March of 1972, they went in. Because I value and I want to teach you the value of narrative storytelling, I'm going to stop right there. Because I know you're not going to fall asleep until I tell you what the hell happened in that bank. So, a little bit about me. Let's go to a topic that I enjoy more than any other. I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Lou Gehrig said that. But I say that about myself because I always knew what I wanted to be. When I was in 7th grade, I had my first newspaper byline at Carmenita Junior High School in Cerritos. The Paw Print was the name of the school newspaper. How liberating would it be if you could only do one thing and that's what you did? That's what I've been doing, the same thing. Never had another care or a worry. Always I was going to be a newspaper reporter, and I was. I'm a one-trick pony, I guess. But the reason that was so attractive to me is I was a sports nut. Still am. Baseball, if I couldn't play center field for the Angels, I wanted to cover the Angels. When you're a sports writer, they let you in the games for free. They give you the best seat in the house, and they feed you for free. And I gained so much weight covering Major League Baseball. But I started in high school sports, and the skill that I learned there was, and it might sound weird, speed. I would cover a game that ended on a Friday night in, let's say, San Clemente, and have to drive back to the office and write 20 inches of copy by 10:30. So I really had 30 minutes to write 20 inches. And if you've ever had to do that, that's a real trick right there, with an editor standing over your shoulder going, "Come on, the presses are running, we got to go, let's go." Those deadlines back in the day were harsh. And I did that on Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. I did it football season, baseball season, basketball season. I'm the guy with the clipboard walking the sidelines, chasing down the high school coach. Excuse me. I've had a cold recently, sorry. So how many times can you see a game-winning home run? How many times can you see a game-winning touchdown? In about 1988, I went to my boss and I said, "I'd like to cover something else. How about cities?" And sports writers have a history of transitioning to the news side. Excuse me. I was given these, yes, could I get some water? I'm sorry. I was given the beat of the city of Tustin. So in 1988, I got out of sports and moved to cities. But the Register was a big behemoth beast in those days with 300, 400 reporters. It was a tough gig. And it was, with the LA Times, the biggest in Southern California. We were competitive, and it was, I would say, the height of journalism in Southern California. So I went to my boss and said, how am I going to, whoop, there goes, I'm falling apart up here. How am I going to capitalize on this great career? And she said, I'm sorry, we've reviewed your stuff and you're not in our plans. This was Tawny Katz. Is she here? So I had a decision to make. Oh boy, what do you do? She said, you got to go out and get some experience in the world. I was 26 years old at the time, and like I said, very competitive business. So on May 24th, 1989, my wife and I packed everything we had in the back of her red Toyota, and we moved east. That was the only destination, east. We had a rule, or we had two rules. All blue highways, back roads, and we would stop anywhere we saw the words homemade pie. So we drove through Globe, Arizona, and Santa Rosa, New Mexico, and Dalhart, Texas, and Hooker, Oklahoma, and we were just like putting the map of the United States, the old, what was it, the Thomas Guides first, and then the Rand McNally giant atlas on the lunch table in St. Louis, and go, where do you want to go tomorrow? And we would say, Lagooty, Indiana. Let's go there. Loogoote. That looks like a fun place. Let's go there. Well, Lagooty, Indiana is just a few miles away from French Lick, Indiana. And if you're a basketball fan, you know that Larry Bird lived in French Lick, Indiana. And so I begged and lied my way into someone telling me Larry Bird's address. And my wife and I in 1989 went to Larry Bird's house. Swear to God. He has a tennis court on the side of his house, or he did then, and we watched him play tennis and took Polaroid, the old style, shake it like a Polaroid picture. But we weren't finished. We kept going, inspired by the lyrics of Bruce Springsteen. Cue the next, let's get Nixon off of the... We ended up in Hoboken, New Jersey, and I got a job working for the Jersey Journal. There's the boss. So I lived in New Jersey for 5 years, and my wife was going to college at the time. She went to Jersey City State College and worked at Madison Square Sports Bistro on Washington Street in Hoboken, New Jersey. I would go to work during the day and then end my shift by going down to Madison Square and having dinner late at night and walking home with my wife. Well, we hear from another waitress who works there this incredible story. Probably, I'm guessing it's like 1990 by this point, about her uncle who and her aunt. Her aunt was murdered by her uncle's best friend. And the uncle's name was Dennis Rasso, and the best friend's name was Stephen Azzolini. And they had decided the world would be a better place if they didn't have wives. And the only reason that cops ever figure out who did murders is by the motive. So if you don't have a motive to kill my wife and I don't have a motive to kill your wife, we'll get away with murder. And they did it, killed each other's wives in 1978, but didn't, because they're stupid New Jersey guys, get away with it. So they were both in prison, but this was an amazing story. I had to go to East Jersey State Prison at Rahway. If you've seen the video Scared Straight, that's where it was filmed. And they put me in a cage, and Dennis had the walk of the cell, and he was probably 6'2", 250 pounds. He had a waist about this big, prison working out, scared the crap out of me, right? He's a cold-blooded killer, bullets in the back of the head to his best friend's wife. And I meet him, shake his hand. He says, "Where you been? This is a great story. It should be a movie." And I go, "You know what? You got a point there." So he unfurled this incredible tale of murder and deceit and backstabbing and hypocrisy. And I dutifully took notes and wrote a series for the Jersey Journal about whatever happened to the guys who killed each other's wives back in 1978. And I decided, you know what, this is my In Cold Blood. In Cold Blood is my favorite book of all time, Truman Capote. This was going to be the thing, nonfiction, kind of a hybrid fiction, nonfiction kind of a technique that the writer used. And so Born and Raised, which was my book, was never published. I wrote a 600 freaking page novel that was incredible, I have to say, if I'm being honest. But it didn't work, and it didn't sell. It was too dark. So my wife and I decided, let's start a family. But we don't want to raise little New Jersey kids. So let's move back to Southern California. So we got in the car and drove. We had walkie-talkies. We had 2 cars this time. We had walkie-talkies and no cell phones then, trying to stay in touch with each other. Back roads again, all the way across the United States. And I got a job at the Pasadena Star-News in end of 1994. And I heard about a woman with an incredible story. Her name was Lynn Miller, and she had been raped in the 1970s, and the rapist was about to get out of jail. And she believed that a person who would do that, are you going to help me with?
I'm going to try.
Okay, surgery right here. Okay. Thank you.
Really not looking great, but did you shave this morning?
This is a viral YouTube moment, I think, that they call this. I'm so proud. There we go. So I meet Lynn Miller, who has this incredibly heart-wrenching story to tell. I write a story for the Pasadena Star-News about how the guy who raped her has a mental illness because he's a serial rapist. And at the time, it wasn't classified under the DSM as a mental illness. So Lynn Miller went to Sacramento and got legislators behind her, and the rapist was transferred at the end of his sentence to a locked mental facility rather than being released to the streets. So it was this incredible front page article about law and order and a woman getting revenge, right? And I got a call from Hollywood. and a producer invited me down. It was off Sunset somewhere. Hey, bring Lynn Miller. We'd like to buy the rights to her life story and make a movie based on your stories for the Pasadena Star-News. And I was very excited. This is what I've always wanted to do. This is it right here. So it's one of those big tables, executives sitting around, Lynn Miller sitting next to me, and I start to tell the story. 1978, the one night that she left the sliding glass door open, Carno Lyles broke in, and Lynn Miller stood up and excused herself. She walked out of the room and stood in the hallway in the Hollywood studio where we were, and we stopped the meeting, and I ran outside, and she said, I can't do this. I can't. That's my podcast. I could. Good job downloading that podcast so quickly while I'm talking about the podcast. So Lynn Miller in the hallway in tears, I can't do this. She leaves. And I got to go back into the room with the big table and the executives. They go, what happened? And I said, you got to understand. I mean, this is very difficult for her, and she doesn't want a TV movie made about her life. So we were sitting, and they said, do you know any other stories? There are these two guys in Hoboken, New Jersey, who thought the world would be a better place if they killed each other's wives. And they go, oh, tell us more about that. And I go, yeah, Dennis Rasso said, where you been? This is going to be a great movie. They go, oh my gosh, this is incredible. That's better than the Lynn Miller story. Have you ever written a screenplay? And I go, no, sorry. They go, hey, Janet, bring in a screenplay. So this woman comes in, and she's got literally a screenplay, 120 pages, brads. Remember brads? In the hole, 3-hole punch, right? They go, this is what it looks like. Make something really good happen on page 30, 60, and 90. Write up that Hoboken story for us. And I said, okay, great. Called my boss at the Pasadena Star-News, need a couple of weeks off. Got to write a screenplay for Hollywood, you know, Hollywood. So I finished the screenplay and gave it to the producers. And one Saturday morning, I get a call from one of the producers. Keith, what are you doing? And I go, sitting. You know, at that point, I had 2-year-old twins, Allie and Dylan, boy and a girl. Lived in Lakewood. Says, can you come to lunch today at the LA Riviera Country Club? I'm like, okay, sure. I've got an agent here who would like to meet you. I said, okay. That agent's name was David Wershafter, who was the head of entertainment at ICM, the biggest talent agency in the world. So I said, hello, tennis is going on. I've got an iced tea, and this is like a bizarro dream for me, right? And David, here's the story about the two guys in Hoboken, New Jersey who want to kill each other's wives. He says, I read your screenplay. This is going to be big. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, let me give you an example. What you should do today is when you drive out of here, stop at a store and get a bottle of champagne. And when your wife comes out and says, how'd that meeting go? Just pop the champagne. Because that's what just happened. And I was like, yes. Oh my goodness. It didn't happen that way. Spoiler alert. Nothing ever happens that way, but it was a great moment. So what they did at ICM was they signed me for no money. And they hooked me up with director Gary Fleeter, who at the time I was meeting with him had the #1 movie in America, Kiss the Girls. Do you remember Kiss the Girls? That's your cue? Cue the Kiss the Girls. Cue. Oh, hit the cursor. Hit the cursor. Sorry. It's not. Nixon, backward, forward. Oh, Jesus Christ. Boom. Kiss the Girls. Gary Fleeter. Gary Fleeter didn't see eye to eye with me about this great story from Hoboken. So I go meet with Gary, and we are a new team. I'm going to be the writer. He's the director. We're going to sell this movie, and New Regency Films is going to make it, and it's all a done deal. And Gary says, "You've written a really nice little screenplay here, but it's not a whodunit. You know who did it? The two guys. You give it away right at the beginning. You got to have a body on page 1, an alibi on page 2, and an avenging cop on page 3. That's the way we do things in Hollywood." And I go, "No, I'd rather do it the way I did it." Gary says, "No, we'll do this all. We'll get it rewritten. I'll help you, and we'll get this made. Let me seal the deal with New Regency Films." Great. So I get a call on a Friday night. Deal's off. What? Yeah, the people at New Regency didn't like Gary. And I thought, yeah, I didn't like Gary. Seems that Gary wanted to do a body on page 1, alibi on page 2, avenging cop on page 3, and they wanted to do a whodunit. And I go, yeah, the two guys, Hoboken. And they go, "Yeah, sorry, no deal." And I said, "Are there any other screenplays that need to be written?" And they go, "Well, we did hear about a Warner Brothers project called Showtime. Would you like to meet with those people?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do anything." I lied. I was so mad about the other deal. They told me there's this guy, Jorge Saralegui, producer at Warner Brothers, who wanted to make a movie. All they had was the title and one sentence. Two cops in LA are doing a real-life television show about their lives and what their lives are like on the beat. Could you make a movie about that? And I go, "Oh, yeah, of course. I have vast experience with reality television." Yeah. I lied again, and they said 10 o'clock Friday morning, we're going to have another meeting, and you can tell us your idea. You make us your pitch for what this movie should be. And I'm going to confess to you right now, I did no research. At 9:30, I remembered, oh crap, I've got a phone call. I've got a conference call with Warner Brothers this morning. I was still so mad about the other thing that had gone wrong that I didn't put any work into it. So I took the call, and I said, just winging it, pulling it out of my ass, right? I said, "I've been on ride-alongs with police, and they're really funny sometimes. I was riding along with a anti-gun unit in New Jersey, and I told a couple of stories, and they go, 'You're perfect. We want to hire you to write this movie.' And so it worked. I wrote Showtime, and it got made into a movie in 2003. Thank you. So the roller coaster in my life is up at this point. When you write a $90 million cop buddy movie with Robert De Niro and Eddie Murphy and William Shatner, by the way, had lunch with me. I was in the food line because I thought I'm going to get something out of this whole dang thing. they've got good craft services here. I'm going to go through the line. And William Shatner thought probably the same thing. So he and I were in line together, and he sat down, and he said, Bill, and I said, Keith, and he goes, can I just call you author? And I said, I think that's appropriate. Yeah, you could call me that. It made my life, made my career that Captain Kirk is calling me author. He goes, you've written a part for me. So if you haven't seen Showtime, you should go rent it, because I get like 0.3, some decimal point I get out of rentals for Showtime. He said, I wrote a part for the actor William Shatner to play himself, coming in to teach Robert De Niro and Eddie Murphy how to be a cop on television, because he was T.J. Hooker. So he says to me at lunch, what if I hadn't taken the role? The character's name is William Shatner. Who would you have got? And I said, Eric Estrada. And he goes, oh, good point. Okay. That was the only name that would have worked, if you think about it. I pulled the other cop from the 70s. When you do a $90 million movie, it opens at Grauman's Chinese Theater. 10,000 people show up. They close down the streets. It is literally, it's the thrill of, it's a dream, it's the greatest moment. It's why you would write for 15 years and try and keep doing it for that moment, right? So they have a red carpet. It's just like you think. You walk down the red carpet and there are flash bulbs and you can't see, and they're asking, who are you? Because they have no idea. And I'm walking with my wife so proudly, right? And we get into the theater, and we were first, And so we're sitting, and I'm explaining to Nancy, we are in the greatest moment of our lives right now. Let's do that again. So we got up, exited through a side, walked back down Hollywood Boulevard, and pretended like we were showing up. Hey, everybody. Keith, Sharon, I wrote the screenplay. Flash bulbs again. So now, by the time we get in, there's a crowd forming, and because the screenwriter gets the worst seats in the house, we were right in the front, right here, and there was a row. Grauman's is big, so there was hundreds of people who had won radio contests. So these were the fans. The stars would be in the back, the cool people who could come in. De Niro, I never saw him. He was back in the back, and Eddie Murphy. So my wife tells the people in the front, hey, this is the screenwriter. And so people were coming up to me, oh, congratulations. I'm going, work in the room all the way down the aisle, saying hello to everyone. Hey, hi, taking congratulations because they can't get to the real stars in the back. And then the movie starts. Lights go down, and it says, Robert De Niro, Eddie Murphy. And 2 minutes in, screenplay by Keith Sharon. Yeah! And I go, my people from the front. And I thought, the stars in the back must be going, who the hell is that guy? Hey, they might remember me for their next movie, So that was 2003, and I met Harry Barber right about that time, and I started doing research for a 10-part series that ran in the Register in 2003. And it was, I get a phone call one morning after my story appeared, and it was from Danny Stern. You may know him as Daniel Stern, the tall guy in the Home Alone franchise, the thief, right? The voice of the Wonder Years, whose voice I completely recognize. Oh my God, that's the voice from the Wonder Years. He calls me up one day at the register. Keith, I'm a big fan of the Watergate era. I read your story. I would like to direct your movie about the bank heist from 1972. How would you like to come over and we could talk about the deal? Great. What's your address? He says, well, I live in Malibu. I said, all right, that's about 7 hours from everywhere. He says, I live on a cul-de-sac. You can't miss it. Just park out front, hit the intercom. Someone will guide you in. So I drive my little red Toyota, still same red Toyota from the trip across the country. Cul-de-sacs in Malibu are not the same as cul-de-sacs here. There are giant white walls that prevent anyone from seeing into what the houses look like on Danny Stern's street. So I park, and there's the intercom, push the button. Keith, Sharon here to see Danny Stern, and a Latino woman, a Latina housekeeper, oh, just a minute, I'll be out in a minute, and all of a sudden the white gates swing open. And I walk in to the compound, and here comes Rottweilers. Like a whole brood, what's the word? I don't even know, a gang of dogs. And she's screaming at them, they're okay, stop, he's okay. And the dogs are like jumping, and I'm like, okay, all right, I just act like I know what I'm doing. I've been here before. She calls off the dogs, literally, and invites me in. And I think, wow, Danny Stern has a very interesting house. I'm sitting in the kitchen area. It's got a long table, and it's kind of a cowboy theme. He's got, the cattle skull with the long horns on the wall, and I thought, of course, he's in City Slickers. So he must have been so enthusiastic about that era that he's got this motif in his house. So the housekeeper says, just sit here, he'll be out in a minute. So I sit, and I've got my notepad, and this is going to be a big meeting, and I'm going to pitch how I'm going to do the Nixon heist movie, and I'm waiting, and there's workers, and people are cleaning up, and I'm waiting, and 20 minutes goes by, and 30 minutes goes by. Finally, guy walks out, he's in his robe. Hey, what's going on? I go, hey, here for the meeting with Danny Stern. He goes, he's my next door neighbor. I said, oh, really? Okay. What time is it? Can you walk me back out past the dogs so I could get to the intercom? So I go back out. Oh, there's this other intercom right here. New white gates swing open. And Danny, sorry, it's Keith. I was at your next door neighbor's house. He goes, oh, what's he got in there? I'll tell you all about it when I get inside. He says, lucky for you, you didn't go to the other intercom, because that's Streisand's house. She would have had you killed. I go, oh, thank goodness. So long story short, Danny didn't end up making the movie, but he allowed me to call him Danny, which I think is kind of cool. And he signed a Diner poster for me. He was in Diner. That movie, by the way, doesn't hold up. If you watch Diner today, it's really inappropriate, and I watched it with my kids, and I thought, wow, what was I thinking? But anyway, we took the poster down with the signature on it. He didn't make the movie. Again, I was this close to having a big-time movie with a big-time star, and he didn't do it. So I appeared on a television show called Masterminds. Like the name implies, they discussed crimes, and they came out to my house, and they shot pictures of me walking and talking about bank heists and stuff, and Nixon, 1972. And a producer named Anthony Mastromaro saw that show. So in 2003, after the debacle, Danny Stern didn't do it, Anthony Mastromaro says, hey, I saw you on Masterminds. I think we should make this movie. And I go, you know what? I just happen to be a screenwriter. I would like to try to write the screenplay. He says, sure, go ahead. So I did. And I did. And I did. And I did. I think I rewrote that bloody screenplay 50 times. And I was explaining earlier, they would come to me and say, you know those thieves? The 7 guys from Youngstown, Ohio, who tried to steal Nixon's money? It would be really cool if they were all women. No. It would be really cool if they were lesbians. And if it was set in New Orleans, and it wasn't 1972, it was current time, could you write that? Oh, sure. So another rewrite. How about if we change, let's make it a comedy. Let's just make it a comedy. Let's, it was those kind of changes over the years. And then the directors started to come in. We had the guy who directed, what's the movie with Alec Baldwin where he gives the speech, the set of steak knives, always be closing? Glengarry Glen Ross. The director from Glengarry Glen Ross had lunch with me, and I thought, oh, this would be great. Glengarry Glen Ross is an incredible movie. He didn't do it. And then the guy who did the movie with Mark Wahlberg, Invincible, where he was a football player, he came in and he didn't do it. And so we had director after director, and time was passing. So in 2009, so now it's 6-7 years later, I get a phone call from Anthony. And he says, we'd like to go a different direction. I go, you mean you're firing me from the project that I found and did all the research and met the guy and found Harry and went to his trailer and all this stuff? Yeah, we're going to try another screenwriter. So I get a phone call from Ken Hickson, a very nice guy. He invites me to dinner at ESPN Zone in downtown Disney. And he says, tell me all the stuff. What's going on with this movie? And so he did a rewrite. And we eventually shared credit. So that's a good thing, and I'll get to that. But I want to fill you in on what I was doing while this was going on, while I was rewriting and trying and hoping and praying and dreaming about having another opening night. I was doing really good work for the Orange County Register. In 2005, we did the story called Toxic Treats about the lead levels. I didn't even have to touch the cursor that time. Good work. About the lead levels in Mexican candy and the dangers of candy that was imported from Mexico. And in the 2005 Pulitzer, the day that the Pulitzers were announced, we got a special citation. First runner-up. So there was no champagne that day, but, I got a thing to put on my resume. Anyway, it was really important work and one of the highlights of my career. Also 2005 was Hurricane Katrina. I got a call one Thursday or Friday morning. I think it was September 1st or August 31st, something like that. Would you like to embed with a rescue crew? We're leaving in an hour. And I was at the Register, and my kids were in elementary school, and my wife was at work, and we're leaving in an hour, and you got to get on the bus in an hour. So I raced home, got a bag together, went to their school, said goodbye to my kids. Hey, I don't know when I'm coming home. See ya. called my wife, sorry, twins, have fun. And we went to New Orleans. We were there for 16 days, and I slept every night on the New Orleans Saints practice field in a cot on the 10-yard line. It was an incredible story of people trying to help each other and government inefficiency, where we had thousands of people trying to help and no permission to go in and help. And then when we went in, there were no boats. There was water, 6 feet of water, but we couldn't get through. And it was a nightmare. So day 16, my plane is leaving. I'm about to go, and we get a call that they found a dead body on a street in the French Quarter. Do you want to go out there? And I'm like, well, I got to go to the airport. Oh, okay. So I got on the back of a truck and went out and found Mr. Edgar Hollingsworth, who had passed out the first day of the storm on his couch, and the rescue crews that had gone by in all those days had spray painted dead body on the door, so no one ever thought to go in and save him. So the doctor, who is not in that picture, Peter Zuliger from Mission Viejo, what happened was, on another routine check, someone saw his foot move. And they said, oh my God, that's not a dead body, that guy's alive. So they brought him out on the sidewalk in front of his house. He was about 70 pounds at the time. They couldn't find a vein. His system was so messed up. He was so thin. Dr. Zuliger said he had heard once about a way of finding a vein if you cut open the person's chest and go underneath their clavicle. And so I watched them do this procedure on the sidewalk in front of the house. Edgar Hollingsworth, lived 4 more days and died shortly after. But he was a victim. He was the last victim of Hurricane Katrina, and I was there to witness it. Again, incredible. And that's the thing about this job. Remember I said you get into the game for free and you get the free food? You also get access and up close and personal to these incredible stories. Like the time they asked me, would you like to go to China for the opening of Disneyland in Shanghai? And so I did. It's 13 freaking hours. Yeah, that's me. When I had darker hair at that time, I was there for so I always thought about 1955, Anaheim, the 2 kids who went in and said hello to Walt Disney, the famous black and white footage. I was there in Shanghai for the opening. That place is incredible. I think it's 5 times or 10 times bigger than Disneyland. So this castle that you're seeing in the photo, they have problems with smog in Shanghai, and people wear masks. So instead of doing fireworks at night, they shine lights on the castle. Like it becomes the screen, and they do a color and video extravaganza every night using the castle itself. At Disneyland, it's a 1-mile loop if you walk it around all the lands. In Shanghai, it's 5 miles. And they have gardens in between the lands that are absolutely stunning. They put more effort into like the aesthetics, look of the place. How am I doing on time? 10 minutes. Okay. So much to get to. All right. So the guys broke into the bank. And they got all the trash bags, burlap bags full of crap and money and took it out of there. And in quick succession, 6 of them got caught. They were masterminds, but they made some horrible mistakes, like in the getaway house. They had a condo rented on the golf course in Laguna Niguel, and they left the dishes in the dishwasher. Men, right? Fingerprints from all the guys. But one of them got away, and his name was Harry Barber. And Harry Barber, the getaway driver, went east from Southern California, changed his name, went to a cemetery, found a guy with a similar birthday, John Baker, JB, and moved to a little town called Brookville, Pennsylvania, where he lived for 8 years. Fell in love. That was his problem. Literally. One night, Marlene Brady, his girlfriend, was doing his laundry and noticed that the inside of John Baker's pants said Harry Barber. Hey, JB, who's Harry Barber and why is his name written on the inside of your pants pocket for the dry cleaner? He goes, oh, I'm a fugitive, and that's what my name really is, and I'm very, very sorry, but I thought you should know. So he tells her the whole story. Nixon, Milk Fund. Marlene Brady's twin sister, Darlene, is the first ever female police officer in the history of Brookville, Pennsylvania. I don't need to explain Harry's problem at this point, but the FBI descended on the little town and Harry got caught. He was the 7th person to be arrested, but thankfully for me, he talked and told me the story, and I made a cottage industry out of retelling the story of the 7 guys from Youngstown, Ohio, which leads me to 2019. And that movie that I rewrote 50 times, that Ken Hickson came in and rewrote after me, got made with Travis Fimmel, who's William Fichtner on the end, Travis Fimmel, Reese Cairo, and Louis Lombardi. And all of these guys became my buddy. They went to dinner with my family. The week of the premiere, was actually 4 premieres. We did the ArcLight in Hollywood. We had a night in Santa Ana. Cue the blue velvet tuxedo. Look at that. That's me and Louis Lombardi. If you ever write a movie, don't wear the regular tuxedo. Come on. Every time I watch the Oscars, I go, how come the women have the yellow and the colors and all the stuff, and they put so much thought, and then the guy's wearing just a suit that they could have worn in 1942? Wear the blue velvet tuxedo. It's my advice. So podcasting at the Register is a new thing. The LA Times had Dirty John, and we started to say, gosh, we should do something like that. And I go, I know this story about this guy who participated in the biggest bank heist in the history of the United States. I could do that. So they gave me a microphone. I hook the microphone up to my sock drawer in my walk-in closet in Trabuco Canyon, and I record myself telling this story kind of like I'm doing for you guys. And we have a weekly show called Crime Beat. And then the movie premiered and the show ended, and we launched season 2, which was the murder of Kathy Torres, 1994, a woman, a student at Cal State Fullerton, found stabbed 74 times in the trunk of her own car, and that's her mother, Mary Bennett. And so I've been working on, podcasting has been a new lease on life for me. I've been doing this a long time, and as you could tell, I love doing narrative storytelling, and so this format is perfect for me. So far this year, we have about 200,000 downloads in 93 countries around the world, and I want to add about 500 or so today. I know I have one new one right here. So we're going to do the Q&A, but I want to leave you with this story to show you about what happens with a long career and how it comes full circle. Remember I said when I got out of sports, I went to cover the city of Tustin in 1988 and 89. And I remember Tustin, how could I forget, because at that time, the number one story, the story that I wrote, and that was the first news story I ever broke, was about cats being mutilated in Tustin, and the Orange County Sheriff's telling the residents, nothing to worry about, it's an urban coyote. And I was interviewing people who were saying, I found my cat cut in half, or with fish hooks in its tendons, or frozen solid, and that does not sound like an urban coyote to me, right? So I wrote 3 or 4 stories about the cat killings in Tustin in 1989, and then I moved to New Jersey, and all hilarity ensued after that. Well, now I'm working on season 3 of my podcast, and the case that I'm focusing on is the murder of a 14-year-old boy named Carl Clace, who was shot execution style in Lemon Heights, and the killer was 16 years old. His name's Tommy Miller. He confessed. He was sentenced to life without parole. And last week, I interviewed the detective who worked on the case for all the years, and I said, when was the first time you ever heard the name Tommy Miller? And he said, oh, I know exactly. He killed those cats in Tustin in 1989. And I said, I covered the cat. I broke the story. The moral of this story is that I've been doing this a long freaking time. Happy New Year. Let me grab this.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much, Keith. We want to open the floor for questions. We have just a few minutes here, and if you have a question, we are passing mics around. Who's the first one? Let me just see. Dan, would you mind helping there? Okay, right up here up front. Yeah. There, go ahead.
Hi, my question is, did you ever do any work or follow-up on the Blaze Bernstein stabbing?
So I sit next to Tony Saavedra in the newsroom at the Register. That's his story, and I listened to him on the phone. That's an incredible case. It could have been a podcast, maybe a podcast someday in the future, but yeah, that's an incredible story.
Thank you. Back here.
First of all, I want to thank you for coming here. It was a very interesting,
Thank you.
Humorous story. Appreciate it. My question is, the last few years we've had a lot of early releases in California of many felons who had their records diminished to a misdemeanor, and we have all these people saying our crime rate has gone down. Am I wrong in saying doesn't sound right? What's your opinion of the actual crime rates in California?
Here's the way I'll
this
answer
happened?
that. I'm not going to tell you my opinion. That's not my job. But what I can say is that issue is going to be the focus of Crime Beat Season 3. But you've hit on something that's really important. The killer in that case was given life without parole. That was resentenced in 2015, and he is now eligible for parole. And so I've been talking to people on both sides who say he deserves a second chance. We should lock him up and throw away the key. So that very topic is going to be, if you subscribe, you'll hear what I come up with.
Thank you very much. Down here, there's a question.
What happened to Nixon's millions? Did they ever?
Really, really good question. There are people who believe that, well, some of it was found, I think, $1.2 million on Sea Island Drive in Laguna Niguel, buried by the side of they couldn't carry it. They had so much money and so much crap, they couldn't carry it. They had to bury some of it, and a jogger found $1.2 million one day.
The same question
They found other money in a field in Youngstown, but they never found the bulk of the money. Some have speculated that Nixon's money wasn't there, that Nixon had a bank account in Bank of America in San Clemente, and this was 9 miles away, and that the guys might have messed up and gone to the wrong bank. They claim, no, we got it, but Harry's living in a trailer. So,
Thank you very much. Right up here in the back on the right. Yeah.
Me? Oh, I'm just curious. You had a wonderful career walking, finding these stories and following up on them. I'm just curious, did your wife have a career while you were doing all of this?
my wife is a high-powered executive in the mental health industry. Let me just disclose, she makes a lot more money than I do. But yeah, thank God for that. No, she's great. She's had a long career herself, and so we have twins, and then we adopted a baby in 2010, and so we have a full plate.
Thank you. There's a question right over here on the side.
Hi, testing. Okay, did Harry Barber make any money on the story? After all, it was his story.
He signed what they call a life rights agreement, and I was with him in a Italian restaurant when the producers sat down and inked the deal with him. I don't know what he got, but he was sitting next to me on opening night, and he was thrilled. So.
And did he donate that to the Republican National Committee?
I don't think he did.
All right, one more question right over here.
Reporters probably make a little bit of money. Do podcasters capitalize at all?
Well, luckily for me, that's now my job. So when I go to work every day at the Orange County Register, a significant portion of that time is to gather string for the podcast. And so it's their podcast, it's not mine, and so I work for them. And so I still get my same paycheck, but instead of a byline in the Register, in the paper, I'm getting byline on the Crime Beat podcast. On Apple Podcasts, by the way.
And you're doing what's the name of that again?
It's called Crime Beat. If you didn't hear,
Beat.
yeah,
Okay,
Crime Beat.
Is there more than one Crime Beat?
There's more than one. This is the one with the police lights.
The police lights Crime Beat.
Yeah,
Okay.
you want to click on that.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate so much you being with us, Mr. Keith, Sharon. Let's give another round of applause for.
Thank you. I'm so sorry about the thing.
Well, we're sorry about that too. We're sorry for the inconveniences we've had today. We've had several hiccups. Thank you for your patience with us. We look forward to coming next week. Next week we have Mr. William Steiner, speaking about the Orange County bankruptcy and its relation to wealth and best intentions. Please come back next week. Come early, get registered, come get your ticket and get in. Thank you so much. Have a great week and Happy New Year.